MPI Gulf States presents Coffee Connection. Today's topic is new ideas and lessons learned from in-person events, summer 2020. Today, I'd like to introduce from the Lodge at Gulf State Park in Orange Beach, Alabama, we've got Paul Ruby and Chandra Wright. From the Gaylord, Texan in Grapevine, Texas, we've got Robert Ramirez and Wendy Ezernack. And from the More and 12 Seasons Catering in New Orleans, we have Aaron Shaffer. And I'm Bethany Lemanski. I'll be your moderator today. And our communications host is Terri Poole. She'll be handling all of our chat and any questions you have to give to the host. A few guidelines for today's Coffee Connection. This is a supportive forum for industry professionals to share insights and experiences. There's no judgment here. Feel free to open up about where you are in this uncertainty. We're here as a group to help you through this challenging time. We encourage you to ask questions, add them to the chat. This helps us keep the conversation relevant. And please be open to share your personal experiences and ideas with the group. This is being recorded, so if you want to share today's discussion with others, we're happy to send you a link following the presentation. And I'd like to go ahead and start with a poll. Terri, do you want to go ahead and launch the poll? And as we're launching the poll, I'm also going to share with you a little bit about our next education event. We will be having our first hybrid meeting Thursday, September 24th. This is going to be an in-person and virtual meeting. So we're very excited that we're going to be showcasing some of the safe in-person meeting protocols that our industry is going to be focused on. This is going to be at Noki. The theme is reconnecting in person, inspiring virtually, and we will have two hosts, Will Curran and Liz King Caruso, that they're going to be presenting virtually. So this is one style of hybrid events. So we're going to go ahead and I think, how are we looking, Terri, on the poll?
We have 43 to 48 responses, 44 now.
Okay, we're going to wrap up the poll. Terri, you want to go ahead and give us the results?
Okay. We have, as of right now, we have 25 people that are ready to do events, and then 12 that are at the end of the year.
Awesome. Well, this is just a perfect way for us to move right in. Do you want to go through the other ones, or?
Yeah.
I'm always curious to see who's on the call. Who do we have on the call? Oh, we will actually, we'll come back to this one. We can launch this one. And, we'll go ahead and launch it now. All right, as we're waiting, we just want to know who's here and what you do. This will help us kind of gauge what our attendees look like and just give us a better focus for those that are our hosts to speak about as well too. All right, so if you guys want to wrap up the second poll, that would be great. We've got just about everybody in there. Okay, let's go ahead and wrap it up. Terri, you want to share the results?
Mostly we have 12 meeting planners, 17 hoteliers, 4 vendors, 7 DMOs, and 3 others.
Awesome. So we've got a great mix of industry professionals. Okay, so we can go ahead and take the poll. We can go ahead and close the poll. All right. All right, so I want to take a moment to introduce our host for today. We want to welcome Paul Ruby from the Lodge at Gulf State Park. Paul, tell us a little bit about what you do, who's on the call from your team, and a little bit about the property.
Well, good morning, everyone. I am Paul Ruby, CMP. I'm the Director of Meeting and Events here at the hotel, and I do everything that's needed. I sell, service events, support my team. and obviously supporting our sales team to make events happen. So on the call with me, I have Ms. Chandra Wright, and she is our Director of Environmental and Educational Initiatives, something in my 30 plus years here in the industry I've never had on our team. And she is a great asset to us to help us in our efforts for sustainability and ecotourism. Also in the background with the beach scene is Maria Roussel, and she is one of our sales teams that works from a remote office in Louisiana and sells our property here. And I think a few of my other team members are hiding in the background there somewhere, but
That's okay. Well, tell us a little bit about the lodge. I know you're a green certified sustainable facility.
Our hotel is a lot of things that a lot of hotels talk about, and we actually are. We're a 350 room property located right on the beach in Gulf Shores, Alabama. We are part of the Gulf State Park. So we've got about 6,500 acres. And the picture that you see of Maria there is actually sitting on the deck of one of our meeting rooms overlooking the Gulf. We have about 2.5 miles of private uninterrupted beaches with no condominiums in sight. So great opportunity for our clients that come down here to actually get out and get into nature.
I'm sure you've had a lot of people this summer that have wanted to come down. So thank you for that. We're gonna go ahead and move on to Robert Ramirez from the Gaylord Texan Resort and Convention Center in Grapevine. Tell us a little bit about what you do, who's on the call from your team, and a little bit about your property.
Well, good morning, everybody, and it's a pleasure to be here with you all today, and so thanks for having us. I'm Robert Ramirez, Director of Sales at the Gaylord Texan. My responsibilities entail leading all the sales efforts for our hotel, especially on the group side. I'll tell you a little bit about our resort. Our resort's conveniently located 5 minutes away from DFW Airport in Grapevine, Texas. And if you all have never been to Grapevine, Texas, the actual airport is in Grapevine, Texas. So there's so many suburbs in DFW, with the center of the hub being Grapevine, Texas. But our hotel and our resort features 1,800 rooms, over 1,800 rooms, and close to 500,000 square feet of meeting space. So some of our customers say we're the perfect hotel for today's social distancing world. And today I'm joined by Wendy Ezernack, our senior sales executive, who actually handles the Southeast and many of your accounts. Both Wendy and I are industry veterans. We've been through the past 2 downturns of the economy. And although this one is unprecedented, we find that the key to success in getting through this is the long-term relationships and partnerships that we build with our customers. So thanks again for having us with us.
Yes, we are glad to have you, and definitely second that long-term development of relationships. We're all, I feel, bonding together a bit more during this. So I want to also introduce Aaron Shaffer. He is with 12 Seasons Catering and the More. If you want to tell us a little bit about what you do and a little bit about 12 Seasons and the More venue.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for having me. So 12 Seasons Catering, we're a large off-premise catering company, traditionally used to a tremendous amount of volume on the daily basis, which of course has been a big shift. We recently bought a venue in Jefferson Parish in Elmwood, which is right outside of New Orleans, which kind of adds to its own set of rules. We are a venue that can traditionally hold about 450 people. So we've made some adjustments in that. Our sales team consists of about 4 different people, all with their own subset of either territories or different social, corporate, bridal areas of expertise.
Okay, wonderful. Thanks. I know that you guys have been doing a lot of meetings that are a little bit outside of corporate, so we're excited to hear more about them. But I did want to just share, after doing pre-event meetings with each of our hosts, the similar takeaway that I got is that everyone is figuring out in-person meetings kind of on their own. Venues are following state and local guidelines and their hotel guidelines, but there isn't really much direction nationally, so there tends to be a lot of gray area. And so even though all of our hosts are following guidelines, I was surprised to see the differences in what that looked like depending on where each entity is based. So I want to go back to Paul Ruby, director from the lodge at the Gulf State Park. Paul, can you give us an overview of the past few months and how things have evolved from March to September at your property?
Thank you. From March to September, we've actualized 25 different groups. I don't want to talk about the number that we don't have the opportunity to service due to cancellations or repositioning for their dates, but we've had 25 successful events go on. Our largest one was 300. It was originally planned for 600 people, but they had some fall off, obviously. But 300 still did come attend. And at the same time that event was going on, we had another one for 100. The group that was 300 was very, very focused on social distancing. They came with their own tape measures to measure chairs and tables. And that one was a big challenge on the front end from our planning side, from our event services manager, to do literally probably 200 different diagrams to get things to where the client wanted them to be. So she spent more time on diagrams than actually planning the meeting, I think. And our smallest meeting that we've had was a wedding for two. We've seen our weddings business increase dramatically, probably tenfold over last year. And the weddings are smaller. They're all 50 people or less for the majority of them. And, you know, as mentioned, trying to stay in tune with what the city, the state, the federal guidelines are, in touch with industry partners such as MPI and PCMA and ESPA to understand what's going on and what's changing. The hardest part in networking with peers is that it's so different across the country. Not everybody's experiencing the same thing at any one time. So that learning curve of you know what to do right next is a continuation of learning for everybody.
And I've found that as well too. Like we mentioned that it's really creating the partnerships with clients, and you know how that has created different formats for each client. So would you say that every event is different?
Every event is different, and part of that is because of where that group comes from. We've been very fortunate here in Baldwin County, where our number of affected people has been very, very low. So our state associations and those from, you know, within the state, which is a good draw for us anyhow, has been very fortunate. But still different planners have different approaches based on their board of directors. I would say 95% of our groups mandate that their attendees are wearing masks. Our state guidelines and our Hilton guidelines require masks of all associates. But it's a gray area with attendees and you know who's responsible for policing whether or not an attendee takes their masks off while they're sitting in a meeting. You know, we've had the benefit of the Hilton Clean Stay program, which started in the guest room side and then quickly moved into the meeting side. All of our rooms are sanitized with a 16-point inspection checklist. The checklist is passed on to the meeting planner prior to the opening of that meeting room. And then there's a sticker placed on the door so that just like on your guest room, you know that room has been sanitized before entering. We still run into challenges with that because not all meeting planners come down first thing in the morning and you've got attendees waiting to get into the room. And so having to flex and just, you know, do the best you can. Yes, the room's clean, it's ready. But some of the guidelines as far as, you know, the client has to inspect the room first and break the seal is sometimes a challenge in the morning for the banquet team.
I can imagine. Yeah. And I know that when we had chatted before, I've seen a lot that people are using directionals at different entrances, but that's been more of a challenge for you at your facility.
Well, when you've got a large group in the ballroom and you've got, 12 points of entry into the room, that actually lends itself better than trying to bring everybody together into a single entrance and a single exit. A lot of the flexibility has been in the registration process. Clients are extending the time on their registration to the day prior. trying to do as much pre-registration before clients get on site and mail packets to them prior to avoid having to come to registration. And as mentioned, before from the Gaylord, having that additional space to spread people out makes it a lot more executable from that standpoint. Just trying to not have people crowded together, extending our break times, extending meal periods so that people have a chance to, not be in such a rush on their schedule trying to get them back into general sessions.
Those are great points. And with that, I want to move into chatting with Robert Ramirez from the Gaylord. Robert, can you share some insight on your safety standards and a little bit about how things have evolved at your resort and convention center?
We've been very fortunate, and I think Texas at some points has changed over time. We went through the peaks, and now we're plateauing in terms of the number of cases out there. But just from its infancy, early in March, Marriott came out with a commitment to clean standards that included over 300 additional steps that we were doing to make sure that we touched every single part of the hotel, all in an effort to make a safe and secure environment for some of our groups and to give confidence to come back. To give you an example is as we start our day, and some of those processes include all of our stars. Our stars are our employees, our associates. And the reason why they're called our stars is our company, Wright Hospitality, was in the entertainment business before we were in the hotel business. And so we're all about creating experiences for our clients. So we call them our stars. But our stars all park in one main area. They come in through one main entrance. As we come into the building, we have to answer some questions to make sure that we didn't come into contact with anybody that potentially could have COVID, make sure that we're feeling well during the course of the day. Then we sanitize our hands, get our temperature taken, pick up a mask that we all have to wear during the course of the day. And here's matches with my blue shirt. And we have to wear, we get our bracelets, and the bracelet changes by the day. And this is all to ensure that, all of our employees are checked as they come in to make sure that we have a consistent process.
And I know that you guys also have instilled people movers. Can you talk a little bit about those?
That's actually my topic. Hi guys, good morning. Wendy Ezernack, how are you guys? Robert and I have divided up the questions today. So I've been with the hotel since we opened in the trailer days, and this is definitely a new day and a new time for us. I was fortunate enough to check into the hotel this weekend for Labor Day weekend and stay the night. And I like to do that periodically just so I can feel it and experience it from an attendee viewpoint. But yes, so like Robert just touched on, at our star entry point, we have very detailed, all of our stars are required to wear masks. And that's a recent Tarrant County mandate. And so when we were doing some of our earlier groups after this mandate, we definitely put some of our people movers in the lobby that could greet and say hello. And if someone walked into the lobby and didn't have a mask on, we had a nice, beautiful box, and people are very, very, very willing to put a mask on, especially in public spaces. So that could be at check-in, throughout walking out through the atrium. Once, obviously, when you get to your guest room or you get to a restaurant, you can take your mask off. Obviously, transportation to and from all of our outdoor pools, but once you're in our pool area, you can take your mask off as long as you're outside in a safe, kind of breezy area. So. Yeah,
and I also know that you guys have been working with the elevator and escalator use, which I know in hotels has been a real tricky point. How are y'all instilling?
Well, we are really the perfect brand, as mentioned earlier, for all of this social distancing environment, because as the Dixie's chick says, we have wide open spaces at Gaylord Texan and all of our Gaylord hotels. So we have over 25 elevators in the building, and we allow 4 people per elevator to stand in each corner. The signage throughout our hotel is fantastic. I mean, from the minute you arrive, you see a lot of signage about social distancing, also in front of the elevators, what the rules are of getting into an elevator. We're finding a lot of athletic people like to take the stairs occasionally, but it's really not been a problem for us because we do have over 25 elevators.
And I know, the reality is, and I'm sure this is part of that, is that people that are in groups social guests or leisure guests. Some are going in larger groups than that
Right.
too.
And we allow that. If you have a family of 6 that all want to get on the elevator together and they're used to traveling in groups, that is fine. But if it's 4 different strangers, that's the limit as in our elevators. So, but we also have escalators in the meeting space as well. So.
And it was interesting during our pre-conference was talking about how your valet has evolved.
Yeah, I'll let Robert talk on that.
Sure. As we continue to evolve, we learn different things along the way. And when we first started rolling out with our commitment to clean, we try to minimize customer touch points because we figured our clients probably didn't want people handling their luggage or getting into their cars. Trying to eliminate some of those touch points is still part of our fiber, including using our Marriott Bonvoy app. Through our Marriott Bonvoy app, you no longer have to actually check in through the front desk because you have your mobile check-in as well as your mobile key where you can go right up to your room and utilize that, and it eliminates several touch points there. But as we continue to evolve, we recognize that the service component is still something that customers strive for, and especially our leisure customers. So as they were coming in, we had valet service for handicap and accessible needs, but we found that there were still many customers that wanted that type of service. So we build upon that as well. And it's something that we're doing. It's an evolution we recognize over time. Some of the things that we've done in addition to that is to take it one step further is our owners, Ryman Hospitality, recognized that there was a need as well for supplemental certification. So we partnered with Vanderbilt University, and that's the medical center that specializes in infectious diseases. And so they took a holistic look at our entire processes and refined a little bit further just to give an additional layer of coverage as well as training. And then on top of that, at the beginning of this month, we were just certified by GBAC, the Global Biorisk Advisory Council, to help instill a greater sense of confidence for our guests, especially as it equates to meetings. So we partner with our Grapevine Convention and Visitors Bureau to get that certification for our area as we try to launch the future of meetings here with MPI WEC in November.
We are very excited about that. So I'm so glad that we have gotten to hear from 2 hotels and resorts, conference centers that work with meetings and associations. But I'm very excited to introduce Aaron Shaffer, who on the catering side, I know works with a lot of associations and meetings, but as that's kind of gone down during COVID, you've had the unique experience to work with more of this, the leisure guests, the person that's having their social events. Can you tell us a little bit about your policy, and then what is it like working the social event with social event clients?
So with us, and I like that we keep saying the word evolve and evolution, and that's certainly what it's become. It's a very interesting time that we're working with. But in terms of our venue specifically, which is new to us, I mean, we've not had it a year. So for this all to happen within a year where we're in this building process has been super challenging and extremely rewarding in how we've been able to kind of overcome some obstacles. When our guests arrive, you can see like we have these little sanitation dispenser thingies, if you can see, with a little, and then our guys all get temperature checked when they come in. So it's, and that goes for our staff as well. The staff also, as they're coming in, everybody has to do their hand sanitizer. Everybody has to get temperature checked. And then you'll find people kind of throughout the day going by and their temperature checking. We don't have any unnecessary staff in the building at the venue, and which is also where we office for our offsite catering. And that is kind of what we've also taken in effect when we're doing offsites, because we're still doing offsite business as well. And
how are the offsites and working with, for example, social clients and wedding clients? Is there less of a concern by that client for overall safety?
So, obviously everybody wants to work within the mandates of the state and federal guidelines. However, because we teeter a lot between Jefferson Parish and Orleans Parish, and it's 2 very different governments, and how they want to handle the guidelines has been very challenging and differs a lot in opinion. As a vendor, we end up subject to a lot of what's happening from the host. So then we have to decide whether or not that's something that, you know, we're comfortable doing, or do we need to back out of it? And it becomes super challenging for us, knowing that, you know, we actually, you know, we still have to, we have bills to pay. We have staff to pay. We don't want to furlough anybody. So we need to keep the business flowing, also trying to be safe and trying to work within those guidelines. So, you know, there have been times when, you know, it's an event for 100 people, but it really should be 50, but it's at a private residence. So we sort of have to walk this really weird boundary.
Yeah, and I feel like you're not alone. I think there's a lot of pressure from individual clients. I think probably more social than the corporate, to kind of fly under the radar on what they're doing. And as a vendor, I know as long as you're keeping your people safe, it's hard. You can't actually really mandate how somebody's supposed to have their party, right?
Right. We, you know, it's, you know, we have to decide whether, you know, if we're at somebody else's venue, in our own venue, we can police that and make sure, you know, say, hey, we can make sure the tables are spaced properly, make sure seating is handled according to guidelines, make sure we offer masks as people are walking in. But if they don't, if they choose not to wear them, you know, we don't have enough staff to make sure each individual is abiding by the guidelines. And then especially if you're off site, that even provides its own set of circumstances.
Yeah, so a lot of great information. So I would like to reach out to the attendees and see, do you have any questions? And if you do you have a specific host you'd like to have them directed? So anybody who has any questions, you can put them in the chat. I don't know if I see any.
I have a question for Erin real quick. What's the largest event that you've done outside of your 50-person restriction?
So are you speaking in our venue or off-site, as an off-site, at an off-site space?
Either one. And if so, is there penalties that, what's the ramifications if somebody reports you or tries to shut the event down?
Sure. So at our venue at the Moore, we've abided by the guidelines specifically. So no more than 50, and that's not been a problem. We've made those adjustments as necessary because we can control it. Offsite, it's been more than 100. But again, you know, we are the vendor, and we can, a lot of the venues that we work with are also our partners, and they've been our long-term partners, and our partnerships are really important. So we don't necessarily want to throw those venues under the bus. And it's just important that we keep our people safe.
Good point. Terri, do we have anything that's popped up in the chat?
Sorry, I muted myself. Yes, we do have Kelly that said, do you see any safety issues with shuffling everyone through the same door upon entry or exit, not only with COVID, but also in case of fire, etc.? I think
I'm not sure who that's directed to. Kelly, do you have a specific host you want to ask that question?
Gaylord.
I'll address that. So we definitely have a wonderful fire marshal in the city of Grapevine, and we have large ballrooms with multiple exits and entrances. And very much so in our new day, we are finding that we're choreographing meetings more than we've ever choreographed. We're spending time on color coding, letting groups go out in sections. For example, if you have a blue zone and you want to do an AM break from 10 to 10, and then the red zone and the yellow zone. So we're trying to alleviate large groups going through a lot of doors at the same time by doing time distancing. And also because a lot of our ballrooms have multiple exits, we like to open all the doors as well. So we're trying to avoid the one door exit for large groups. Of course, we're doing groups anywhere from 10 to 15 all the way up to 2,000. We had a 2,000 person meeting in July, and we'll address that in a bit.
Yeah, that's a great point. And really, I love everyone's creativity on how to actually make this safe. And, you know, that's why we're doing this, to share all that information. So I have a two-part question. This is for Paul and Chandra. How have you been able to safely set up catering? And I also know, since your facility is green certified, how have you maintained acceptable levels of overall sustainability, especially when it feels like plastic consumption is everywhere?
Well, from a food and beverage standpoint, we started off with the guidelines of no buffets, and that's in our restaurants or in our banquet facilities. So we did either plated or prepackaged. Our prepackaged items are all sustainably purchased. So yes, there's an additional cost for us, but the plan is to utilize China glass and silver as much as possible from a plated perspective. But our state and local guidelines allowed us to be able to do buffets if they were served. So we had staff at every single portion of the buffet serving. We have our chafing dishes with the glass inserts that separate the guests from the service side of it. So the guests never touched their plate until it got to the end of the buffet and was handed to them. All of our staff wearing PPE as far as masks and gloves. Our chef worked with us as far as doing much smaller platters and portions on the buffet so that things were getting changed out quite regularly. Our coffee service was 100% staffed. No guests could go up and access the coffee themselves, and the same with our water stations. So there was a tremendous amount of additional staffing required. But being flexible with our clients and them understanding, again, into the timing standpoint, not breaking the whole group at once, kind of staggering things or extending the lunch period really helped us with those areas. But I think Chandra can really talk more specifically from an environmental standpoint, so I will let Chandra step in.
Sure. And so because we opened from day one as a LEED, Gold, Sites Platinum, Fortified Commercial Certified property, we've had the commitment since the very beginning to reduce plastics as much as possible. And so really not much changed with the pandemic as far as our commitment to sustainability. So for instance, our bottled water is actually from a company called Just Water, which uses a plant-based bottle, not a plastic bottle. So that didn't change during the pandemic. Our straws prior to the pandemic were using either natural hay or natural bamboo. And so those are typically not given out unless requested. And so during COVID, we kind of pivoted to an individually wrapped straw that still was a biodegradable product. So just pivoting where we're looking for what's still going to be the more sustainable option. So things like that didn't change. Our to-go containers, obviously we went through a lot more of that, but they're biodegradable, compostable, no styrofoams, no plastics. Individually wrapped sandwiches are using like a butcher paper type product. So we still have that commitment to sustainability. Obviously, supply chains are a little bit strained right now, so sometimes it's been a challenge to source some things. We've had things that have been back ordered for a while, so sometimes in the short term we have to go with what we can get our hands on, but there's still the commitment that that's not going to be the ongoing solution. So we're always kind of continuing to evaluate what the best product is.
And those are great points. Flexibility is the key, it's sounding like, to moving forward with in-person events. I think we actually have a few questions coming through in the chat. Terri, do you want to go ahead and grab those?
Yeah, Gail asked, for Aaron, are you catering offsite in Jefferson Parish only or venturing into New Orleans? How is your staff handling larger crowds than expected offsite, i.e. are they trying to social distance the crowd or removing themselves from the floor?
So we are venturing into New Orleans and beyond. As a vendor, I think we are in a tough situation, and I say this, and I've said it already once, and I think we're just in a tough situation because, as the food and beverage provider, we're not necessarily there as crowd control. I think one thing to consider is that our on-site staffing has increased more than it ever has before, just because when we have signature things like our grazing stations, which we do these big elaborate grazing stations. Well, you can't really do that, but still people want those types of items. So everything has become more pieced together in a grab and go fashion. And then there's somebody serving those grab and go pieces. Same thing, we've really eliminated tray passing. And again, made it sort of a grab and go station item manned by an individual. Crowds have gotten a little larger than expected, and our staff, because we have so much extra staff, if somebody's uncomfortable, one of the staff members, one of our team members, we definitely let them leave the floor and get them out of a place where they don't have to feel uncomfortable. But that said, and I do want to say this, you know, people want to work. Our staff wants to work. You know, although they, you know, understand that maybe they're putting themselves in an at-risk or an uncomfortable situation, they also understand that they have rent to pay and families to feed. And so I think that's something that we need to consider in all of this, this situation, that people just want to work.
I absolutely, and even just from that worker, I think as well too, across the board, we all want to work, and the flexibility in moving forward is really where we're going to have to move. Obviously trying to keep it as safe as possible, but honestly, Erin, I appreciate your sharing the reality of the situation as well too. Terri, do you want to move? We've got a lot of stuff popping up in the chat, so do you want to move forward with other questions?
Yeah, this is from Adrian. Robert or Paul, are you finding that majority of clients have done this research and know what to expect in regards to changes that have their own ideas, or do you find that your team is having to walk through every step of COVID changes, i.e. no buffets, changes, flow, etc.?
I'll answer just, you know, in the Gaylord, Texan, we early on, I think clients were trying to figure out how they could put meetings together, but I think over time there's been more of a structure to meetings. In regards to the facilitate have come up with custom menus that are friendly for this environment. Like sneeze guards are a standard now in a lot of our food action stations, and so we put a lot of theme stations as part of our food and beverage, as well as our coffee breaks, just to add some personality to the break and not make it look so industrial with all of the sneeze guards that we use in place. For the most part, clients are seeing what we have in terms of offerings and liking some of those and adopting them.
If I could add a couple of things there, I think every client is different that comes to the table as far as awareness goes. And I think there's a lot of collaboration going on with our CS and catering team. And I don't think we've completely changed the picture of how to do meetings. I think we've just implemented highly safety issues, but we're really working and listening to our meeting planner, because the meeting planners know their groups best as far as where their comfort levels are and what works for their group. And we are making suggestions, and we're doing a lot of collaboration. And like I mentioned previously, there's a lot more choreography going on in how we are moving through meetings to make it a win-win, so that we're abiding by all of our local laws and ordinances, while also trying to give everyone a fantastic meeting experience.
I see that there's another question from Jeff for the Gaylord as well too.
Yes, it says, what are your touch points keeping the escalator railings clean during a breakout, or moving larger groups from level to level?
Well, we have appointed cleaning ambassadors throughout the hotel. And we have specifically not left them in housekeeping uniforms, but we have put them in white, full-on uniforms, so that it is very visible to guests. Because I feel like a comfort level of seeing someone actually clean, that makes you feel comfortable going up that escalator or going in that elevator and touching those buttons again. So we have white uniformed cleaning ambassadors throughout the hotel, and we're very much, again, choreographing when things are getting cleaned. If you're doing a group movement of 500 people down escalators, obviously we're going to clean that, and we're going to go and we're going to be on it during that people movement time.
Yeah, and if I can add to that as well, is we continuously clean. We have hand sanitizers every 10 paces. I've literally walked up to the meeting space just to get a sense of how far apart they are. So every time you can turn around, there's a hand sanitizer there. But in addition to that, I don't know if everybody's seen the movie Ghostbusters. So they have these machines that look like you're sucking in ghosts, but there are the electrostatic sprayers that we use also to, the molecules in them kind of wrap themselves around and sanitize and clean. I'm not a scientist, but that's the jargon that we use, and they're very expensive equipment that we use to make clean up those areas on a frequent basis as well.
That's great. I've seen those, and they do totally look like Ghostbusters. I think we have one more question in the chat.
Yeah, and this is for anyone to answer. So Mike asked, with the current guidelines in place, what do your group receptions look like, and any creative ideas how to spice receptions up social distancing setting?
Oh, that was a toughie.
From a reception style, what we're doing is we're utilizing a lot of our outdoor space because we've got a great outdoor patio that sits right on the Gulf that gives the people the additional room to spread out, spacing people out at bars, having the stickers on the floors, promoting social distancing in the bar lines, having additional bars available, versus a 1 per 100, you're going to have 2 or 3 bars out there. And just kind of making sure that we're spacing the stations to reduce the amount of lines at any one time. And as mentioned, having the variable of action stations builds the engagement with our customers to be able to talk about the food product, and the attendant can initiate those good conversations talking about the items that they're serving. But I think the spacing and moving outdoors has been a great help for us because the comfort level is a lot greater once you're outdoors and feel that sea breeze.
Okay, those are great questions. So if you guys have if anyone else has any other questions, please continue to put them in the chat. I'm gonna move back over to Robert and Wendy from the Gaylord. I was curious about your safe conference setups. Can you share some tips on what's worked, as well as can you give us some idea of what we can expect to find from MPI's WEC conference being held at the Gaylord in November? Sneak peek.
I'll let Robert discuss MPI.
Sure. We're honored to be hosting MPI's WEC conference. Hopefully everybody marks their calendars down November the 2nd through the 6th. And the theme of I haven't been involved in the day-to-day planning because I know it's still evolving, but the theme of the conference is Reunite for Recovery. And it covers a broad spectrum of how meetings should be executed in this environment. So a lot of the content will include that, as well as I'm sure a slew of other topics. But I know that they're working on marketing. There's a video coming out here shortly, so I don't want to spoil it for them. But I know that they will send out mail care packages for those that register. They will include sanitizer and masks that people will wear as they come to the conference. And then obviously the overall push to continue to promote our mobile check-in and mobile keep through our Marriott Bonvoy app to try to minimize guest touch points for those that are a little leery of obviously having those touch points, all designed around a safe and secure meeting in this environment.
We're very excited.
And I'll speak on meeting set. So we as well have done over 25 meetings since we reopened June 8th, varying in sizes. And we too have seen some weddings, some smaller weddings. And it's been an interesting time. Again, like I said before, as far as room setup points, there's a lot of creativity going on, and there's a lot of collaboration going on between the meeting planner and our hotel team. And I'll just go straight to, in this world that we're living in, we've all seen the red, yellow, and green of where your comfort level is. And this is just something we just started talking about, and not officially, I just talked to clients about it. Everyone has a red type person who just doesn't want to travel. And those are the folks that are staying home and doing virtual meetings. And then you've got those folks that are in the yellow zone who are really comfortable coming to a meeting and wearing a mask and still staying 6 feet apart. And then you've got a few of those people attending your meeting that are in the green zone and don't want to wear a mask and are real comfortable being together and touching and being in groups together. So I think the meeting planner really has to address all three of those prototypes of their attendees when they're thinking about their meeting as a whole, and doing room setups accordingly. We've seen a lot of fun creative sets. We've seen sets where it's 1 per 6 foot in a classroom, while over here you've got a theater section of folks that it's every 2 seats are seated. We've done a couple of meetings where people are doing their breaks in a timed format, whether you're in the yellow zone or red zone, as I mentioned previously. We did book a relatively large meeting in July. We booked it about 6 weeks out. We were fortunate enough to host 2,000 people in our building the second week of July, which was a great privilege to work with that team and make it happen. When we were in the selling mode of it, we thought they were going to have about 2,400 people. So we were contracting our largest ballroom in anticipation of doing every other chair theater. Once we got into the planning stages, it evolved, and what we realized, it was a multi-level marketing company, and a lot of their businesses are done with family members, so they were super comfortable traveling in pods of 4 and 6. So we reworked our general session set in our largest ballroom, and we sat theater 6 chairs, and then we would distance that every 6 feet. They were also reserved seating. So when they came back to that general session room, they sat in the same 6 chairs every day that they had that general session meeting. And it worked absolutely beautiful. Prior to them arriving, our ordinance was mandated to wear masks. So we had to quickly get on a conference call with them. And prior to their arrivals, they needed to communicate to their attendees that mask would be now required, whereas at the time of booking the contract, it wasn't. So they really worked well with us in mandating the mask, and it was a fantastic meeting for 2,000 people in July, and from that we have gone from there and used it as a prototype.
It's really inspiring to hear that you're doing groups that large. I know all of us on the call are waiting for the time where we can go back. So just knowing that you're already approaching those is inspiring to me. I can't wait to get back out there. So I encourage anyone else, if there's any other questions in the chat. Terri, do you have anything for us?
Yes. Kimberly asked, can people remove masks once they've seated at seminars? How are hotels handling it?
And, you know, in our facility, although they are still required, and most of the time the meeting planners is the ones making the announcements for the general session, holding their people accountable. The hotel does not have staff that walks in and polices whether or not you have your mask on, or you've pulled it down from your nose for a minute, or because there's ADA issues out there where there's people that are unable to sit for long periods of time and have, you know, claustrophobia or other things that, you know, we're not licensed to kind of be that policing agency for that. So at that point, we kind of turn it over to the meeting planners to kind of hold their staff accountable for it. And, you know, since we've been doing the meetings all from March till now, we've not had any real negative experiences in any meeting scenarios, although we have had the guests that are walking through a public area and see another guest and want to complain because that guest over there doesn't have their mask on. So it's still a very fluid situation for everybody. And I think peer pressure wins when, you know, most people are wearing their masks, and we do offer the masks available at the desk or in the restaurant. And all of our meeting groups have been bringing masks in advance, customizing logos, getting sponsorships for them. So we're seeing, for the most part, it's working well, but we're not going to be the policing venue.
Hey, Bethany, if possible, Chandra, could you spend just like a minute talking about our fresh air intake and the, you know, all the aspects of, you know, the clean program with our construction aspect that makes it safer for meeting attendees in our ballrooms?
Yeah, so the way our facility was designed was to have a lot of fresh air intake through the HVAC system. And so we do have a lot of fresh air. Our guest rooms all have doors and windows that open. And so we encourage our guests, all the buildings are separated by covered walkways. There's a lot of opportunity for people into the rooms. Our guest rooms are on, the doors and windows are on sensors. And so if people are in their guest room and they want to leave the doors and windows open, the HVAC system will shut off so that we are conserving energy. But that's another thing that we've been able to promote, is that we do have a lot of that fresh air access coming in to the facilities.
Yeah, I think just the reconfirmation for all guests that facilities are doing what they can to make them feel more comfortable, whether that's fresh air or cleaning, all of those are all going a long way to making others feel comfortable. Terri, do you have anything else in the chat?
One more. I have Adrian ask, are your venues responsible for temperature checks of attendees, or do you put the responsibility and expense on the client if they want it?
Really, that is a, we do, as Robert mentioned earlier, temperature checks for our stars, i.e. our employees. And really the temperature check really falls onto the meeting planner, if that's an additional expense. I also had another client that said, hey, can we rent additional hand sanitizers? And I said, come do the site with me and you'll see how many we have before you want to make that expense, because we have a lot of hand sanitizers. So yeah, so I think a lot of that is optional for the meeting planner.
And I do love Aaron's idea of having them, branded as well too. The little pumps. That's actually a fun way to clean your hands.
Yeah, and we do in our venue as guests are arriving, because it's essentially we are the planner inside the venue. We do our temperature checks and hand sanitizers. Security checks each person as they're walking in.
I actually want to just chat with Aaron a little bit more about an interesting term that has come to my attention. It's event shaming. Can you tell us what this means and how it's popping up in the social events world?
So, I know that, especially within with our sister parish in Orleans Parish, a lot of venues, wedding planners, vendors really are challenged with a lack of the ability to execute their events. And because there's a lot of overflow coming in this direction, or, people are doing, large, if they're larger private homes where events can be hosted, things are happening there. And now there's this whole social media movement and all of these Facebook groups that are like trying to call out, vendors because they're not following the rules and things like that. But there's so much more to it that maybe people aren't understanding in terms of, how these things are being handled on site, or how people are being brought into the picture. So you may call out a caterer because they were party to an event. But again, as the vendor, you have the option of saying, hey, I don't want to do it, or you can make sure your people are safe and you move forward with the event. I don't think it is a large group's responsibility to, shame somebody else or try to affect their future business. And I understand sometimes that misery loves company, but I just, everybody I think is trying to do the best thing that they can.
I agree. And I think just it continues to hit home that it's working as a partnership with your clients and just keeping really open lines of communication. If there are going to be more people, giving the vendors the options to say yes or no. And then, again, from the hotel standpoint, if you have a client who, they've come, everyone knows each other, they've been spending time together, and they want to have a green sort of like engagement meeting where they aren't so socially distanced, then that really is falling in the hands of the planners and keeping that partnership open.
Well, I mean, we've had some private events that initially were supposed to have char-grilled oysters, for instance, poolside char-grilled oysters, and the homeowner is like, this party is trying to fly under the radar. We really don't want to call a lot of attention, so we've shifted things to call less attention. A lot of times people that's in a neighborhood, they're asking their guests to arrive by ride share as opposed to filling the neighborhood with a ton of cars. As just a couple of examples of some things that are happening on our side.
it's challenging. Everyone I feel like is having to walk a line between staying in business and satisfying their customers and also being safe, which is really, I think why we're having this conversation right now is.
Well, and Bethany, I wanted to touch on too, like, as we are all in this evolution of what we're doing, even on the catering side, a lot of virtual events are beginning to happen. And so now we are in the, whereas, we kind of miss the fun of the on-site event and the large scale of 2,000 people and all the hustle and bustle of it. Now, as food service providers, we're now packaging these virtual events for contactless delivery. And that's been a new and interesting and exciting challenge, and learning about, how much product I can get into a foil pan to put into a catering box, and what the shipping is on that, and all of those different things, and really kind of catering to what the needs are in, Florida from New Orleans, if we're shipping product out there for them for their event.
Sharing that New Orleans love. I think it's so important to keep New Orleans at the forefront of everyone's minds, and all venues and locations as well too. We want everybody to return back to in-person meetings and doing it in a safe way. I just wanted to really quickly hit on one thing from Julie mentioning the challenges of the hard of hearing and impaired people that are having a difficult time reading lips. And Julie, I'm happy to also share, and I can share this in the chat with everyone. I actually know someone who creates specialty masks that have a clear front that can also be branded with your logo. So if there is anyone who's interested in that service, I can connect you with the person who makes them as well too. And I know that is really tough for ADA clients that are just suffering so much at this point. Terri, do you have anything else in the chat that you want to bring up?
Yes. Are DMCs planning on using outside vendors in the future, or will they be doing everything in-house?
DMCs? Well, that would be hard.
I could comment on that. I'm David with BBC.
So
We don't have anything in-house. As a DMC, we rely on all of our vendors for our services. So working with caterers like Aaron, working with decorators, working with venues, working with transportation, with entertainment, we own none of that. So yeah, we are definitely going to be working with vendors as soon as we have more business to work on.
Yay.
I can speak on that. So at NOCCI, most of our events right now are transferring them virtually. We're doing all of the creative side with the platforms and building everything out, and then also using all New Orleans vendors for the production, for catering, for the entertainment pieces. But we're doing most of the management and the creation side in-house for sure.
Good. Yeah, that's great, and definitely moving forward and keeping all those New Orleanians in work is fantastic.
If I can also say, we were able to do an event just a couple of weeks ago and definitely utilized our local decorators for support. We can't do it without them.
And that's really where I think the whole point of having this is, how do we create a comfort level within attendees so that we can get back to in-person meetings and be able to put all of the people back to work that have, are only able to do things when you're actually able to meet in person. So hopefully this is just helping to grow comfort levels and seeing what other facilities are doing, and continue to build the desire to meet in person again. We are about to wrap up, but I think we have a couple more questions, and I just want to hear any final words from our hosts. Terri, do you have any more questions for us?
Yeah, I have Jonathan. He goes, is it more acceptable for a venue to share its security protocols with planners in this new environment? Previously, he's been met with resistance from sites that would not share this type of information. I need to know what the venue will do in case of a COVID situation arises during my event.
Does anyone want to take this? Has anyone had any experiences with COVID popping up in anybody's events yet? Okay, well, we can, I don't know if we have actually an answer for that.
He does have a part 2 though. Also, he's not hearing much of discussion regarding contract tracing. We've been told it's our responsibility to keep this information for 14 days post events. This also may be more of a New Orleans thing than some of the other locations.
Yes, I can't speak on that. We don't have any government officials on. I don't believe so. If anyone does have any information very specific to what those answers are, please feel free to chime in.
At our venue, we keep the guest list. We've requested that the attendee guest list is given to us, and it goes into the contract, the client file, just in case. But we know, like, especially with weddings, sometimes you have some pop-ups. Sometimes you have a +1 that shows up that we don't have a name for. But we do our best to make sure we accommodate that.
And that's a good point. I know we'll be, MPI Gulf States is going to be hosting our first hybrid meeting in September on the 24th, and we will be doing contact tracing as well too. We'll know everyone's setting and be able to accurately pinpoint that for the future if something were to come up. Any other questions before we hear wrap-ups from our hosts?
I just have a comment really quick about, is it more acceptable for a venue to share its security protocols with planners? I think that it is, I think that it wasn't necessarily not acceptable, but in the beginning, there were no protocols around COVID. And so we didn't, as like a hotel community, didn't necessarily have the guidance and direction from like our higher ups and the brands to roll anything out. Whereas right now we have, I mean, every brand, Hyatt, Hilton, Marriott, has a ton of information, and the brands have now put together committees and, specific departments to roll information down to us and set those standards. So I don't think there's any negative to not sharing our protocols as a hotelier. I mean, we are, I know for us, encouraged to share it and encouraged to put it all out there and be completely transparent with it. So I think that moving forward, meeting planners will start seeing more transparency with what's being done on the hotel level, just because we have that verbiage now to give to you.
And just to follow up Adrian's point, and this is something that we've been discussing for our first hybrid event, which we will have in-person guests, is communication. Communication right off the bat, letting your guests know what they can expect, what they're walking into, how you're keeping them safe, what, is there going to be food and beverage service, and how is that going to look? It seems like the more communication that you can give to your clients moving into an event, the better they're going to feel about coming to the event, and they're not going to be caught off guard with any surprises. And really what we want to do is create that confidence that get people back into venues, and whatever that can be. I feel like the communication is what we're hearing is going to be one of the better ways to let guests know what's going on. And with that, I think we are ready for wrap-ups. Paul and Chandra from the Lodge, do you guys have any last words to share with attendees today? Any last creativity?
Chandra?
Where'd she go?
Come see us. We got 28 miles of trails, 6,150 acres, lots of outdoor opportunities to explore and reconnect with nature and each other. So practicing physical distancing at the same time.
Fantastic. Robert and your team over the Gaylord, any last words?
Yeah, just thank you all for allowing us to be part of your day. We understand these are difficult times for everybody, but our goal with the Gaylord brand is to be part of the evolution of the meetings industry and get us out of this COVID recovery as fast as possible. We recognize that as people meet, we change the world, right? And so it's exciting to see that the poll showed that most people are ready to meet here soon.
Yeah, I don't believe that the MPI logo has been more appropriate. And before we hear from Wendy, Terri, can you just go ahead and also put all the contact information for our host in the chat as well too? And sorry, Wendy, go ahead.
That's okay. I just want to see each and every one of you at MPI WEC in November.
Yay. And Erin, do you have any last words or words of advice?
No, just thank y'all so much for having us. Certainly great to be able to share all of this great information with everybody and to hear what everybody else is doing. Certainly to our New Orleans people out there, you know, we love our frienders. I think it's so super important that we're all just trying to work together and to keep on moving forward and just to keep our head above water. So whatever we can do to support each other, I think that's really where our head needs to be.
Absolutely. I'm going to just quickly share a slide that has everybody's contact information on it in case you do want to connect with any one of our wonderful hosts today. We're just so grateful that you have taken the time out of your day to share your information with us so that we all can move forward in creating confidence within our attendees to meet in person again. And I'm happy if you want to just pop up in the chat. If anyone does want a copy of today's recording, just let me know and we'll send that out. Usually takes a little bit of time to get there. But before we hang up, we want to do our very last poll. And this is just something so we can get a temperature read on the subjects that you might find interesting for future events. Terri, you want to go ahead and release that last poll? Wonderful. We'll just take a couple minutes here and just get your feedback on topics you'd like to see here in the future. And I'll do one more push for our last, I'm going to put the slide back up about our MPI next meeting that we're going to be doing, a hybrid meeting, and very excited about it. So let me just go ahead. It's got the details. We're going to have 2 virtual speakers, Will Curran and event superstar Liz King Caruso. They're going to be tuning in. It'll be one side of a hybrid event in which we have attendees both virtual and hybrid. I'm sorry, hybrid is both virtual and in person. And then this side of it will have the guests that are virtual. But this is part 1 of 2. And in November, we will be doing a fully in-person event with all of our speakers will be in person. And then we will also have that sent out virtually as well too. So lots of fun things on the horizon with MPI. So we'll go ahead and wrap up the poll. And I just want to take a minute to thank everyone for getting on the call today. Again, thank our hosts so much for taking the time out of their schedules. And we can just do a quick wrap if you guys are interested to know what other people are looking at for topics. Terri?
Yes. So our biggest one is the state of the industry. I think all of us are always wondering as it's ever revolving. 55% for virtual hybrid events. Next is 26% marketing and social media. 24% is career development. And 21% is diversity inclusion.
I can tell there's a lot of New Orleanians on here because the lowest is the health and wellness. Come on, guys. Nobody wants to be fit. Well, with that, we will conclude today's Coffee Connection. Again, we thank you so much for joining us today, sharing your insights, being an active participant with your questions. And we will see you back September 24th for our next education event. Thank y'all so much and have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.